Well, Matt, while you were on vacation, which was just 2 weeks, a couple of things happened. We had multiple unprecedented political events, followed by what many are calling the largest online outage effort. So, my
Yep.
question to you is: did you pay attention to any of this while you were sunning yourself by the pool or on the beach?
Yeah, of course. It's hard to avoid this kind of stuff, even when you're on vacation. We did make a concerted effort to like stop talking about things. Um,
Like you and the family, or like
yeah,
just
oh yeah, yeah. People are
just
like, all right,
everyone, or what?
everyone was like, let's not talk about this, and then it kind of bled into things. Still, I mean, nobody watched the Republican convention, but the news before that was top of mind.
For sure. For sure. Well, I guess that was we talked a little bit about Kote. He was prepping for his vacation. And
Yeah,
his perpetual question is like, how do you unplug? But I don't feel like you have that problem. I feel like, all right, well, that's what I was gonna ask you. Like, how do you unplug on a vacation? And what's your like how many days does it take you to like quote unquote really unplug?
I unplugged pretty thoroughly. I've I removed stuff from my phone, and
Oh, just for
yeah.
vacation? You actually remove things just for vacation? Like you delete or is it all the time?
uh yes. Usually when I go on vacation, I just suspend everything. I'm like, look, I'll check my email maybe, every day just to see if anything is blowing up inside the email, but not on my phone.
Well, you don't do on the
Uh,
Slack. You put the little palm tree on the Slack.
I did.
That's
I put the vacation mode on there
uh-huh.
and put it as indefinitely. So if you see me with a palm tree somewhere, let me know and I can change it back because I'm back. Vacation is over. Yeah.
So when you're on vacation, because you're good about, I think you're also really good about turning off notifications. So we don't have to go into any specific event, but like what penetrates, like on vacation, I find like I still have like I still have like the outlets I follow. I still have notifications popping up. But sometimes like we had some events that like I find like when something's like a major event, it penetrates the family group chat. Like people are like, this is happening right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's always like when it hits the family group chat, I'm always like, oh, this is like big. So do you have like a similar early warning system where it's like, this is a way to get to me, and if it got to me this way, it's probably I need to turn on the news or at least be aware of something?
Well, we had a big Airbnb for 3 families, 4 families, right? It was a big
Huh.
family vacation. So it was when you wake up in the morning to go get your coffee, someone's always like, "Did you see the news?" Yeah,
Right.
and my oldest is uh, very active in reading the news to the point where like sometimes he calls me and texts me before my alarm even goes off in the mornings. So um, so I had to like educate him like, no, before 7 a.m. is sleep time, right? Just because you've got those family alerts, right? Where they can,
Yeah,
anybody in your
push through,
family
right?
circle bust
Yeah.
through any
Oh yeah,
filters,
of
right?
course.
And I'm like, this is I can sleep on this news, right? Um, especially as it got like more and more into the story, like I don't need details, right? This will all unravel as more is known. I don't need the play by play, right? Uh, so there was a fair amount of that, but it was still a great vacation. Good to get away. Unfortunately, it was interrupted by the CrowdStrike news a bit. So parts of my family did get stranded on holiday, so that was kind of annoying.
All right. All right. We'll use that as the ad break for everyone watching streaming. Go visit our friends at SysAd. I'm sorry, SysAid, and check them out for all of your needs. And for those listening to the podcast, you'll hear a beautiful ad read by me at that moment. I love it.
Good stuff.
All right, that's a good segue, Matt. So I'll pick her up right what you said there. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, Matt. So you were just getting into it. So CrowdStrike. So people are basically, I think we always should start at the beginning of these things. Like it's widely reported largest internet, I'm gonna call it online, largest online outage ever. And it's totaling something on the order of 8.5 million Windows, and we do know in this case they were all Windows servers or PCs were affected.
Yep.
So I don't know. I always like to start at the very beginning and just be like, was it actually the largest? And I guess we have to put some qualifications. Obviously, early on in the time of the internet was small, so like probably one bad router took down the whole thing, like in like
Yeah.
whatever. So of course, let's just kind of like put that to the side. We'll call it modern day, like sports. We'll call it modern day internet usage. I think they're probably right. I feel like this is probably the biggest outage ever, but I don't know. What
Yeah.
do you think? Can you think of anything bigger?
I mean the McAfee one from 2010 was big, but I think the penetration of internet in our lives today is even more so than it was in 2010. Yeah, so yeah, I would say it's probably a safe call to say this is the most disruptive event to consumers in a while. I mean, obviously things like what happened with SolarWinds
Mm-hmm.
or the Microsoft Azure credentials
Or the
bug.
Sony
Nobody knows the
app.
full extent of how
Yeah,
bad those were. Right.
right.
This was just knocking things offline as opposed to stealing vast amounts of data. So what happens with that data could have greater implications, but for most people, this sucked.
I really like what you're doing there. It's almost like we have to have categories. Like this
Yeah.
is sort of the largest outage that we're going to, at least for everything we know, it was not related to any type of like hack, right?
Right.
So we have that as like one category. Then we have like largest hack of all time, which of course has
Right.
probably happened and we don't know about it. Like someone right now is like on every computer in the world. We don't know it, but we obviously know some huge ones. So I like that. It's good. Well, here at Software Defined Talk, I always feel like, I always come back to the first rule of debugging is always assign blame. So I believe that's what we're going to start with. Okay. This is not a blameless postmortem. So I think there are three people I want us to consider of when we're assigning blame. One is obvious, CrowdStrike itself. Okay. Then I think well understood. Microsoft has also been dragged into this multiple ways. Yeah. And then in the Software Defined Talk, Slack, someone kind of said, well, this is really kind of on the end users. This is on kind of the organizations running this. Like how do they actually set it up? So I'll just set it up. I'm sure everyone knows what happened, but I'll just quickly give you the summary just to make sure everyone knows. It's like CrowdStrike issued an update. The update ultimately was a bunch of zeros and what we're just going to call a config file, although you can like get into the details there. It's pretty clear that upon reading this file, a null pointer exception or memory problem was encountered inside the kernel. The entire, of course, that rendered the PC basically died, blue screen of death. And then sadly for everyone, you couldn't just reboot it. You had to actually boot into safe mode and then you delete the file. And then God help you, if you had BitLocker, you're probably just done. You're still trying to figure out like what I need to do. So,
but you've got a gift card coming your way.
We'll get to the gift card in a minute. That to me is almost the dessert. That is literally the chef's kiss on top of this. So, but let's go back to it. So, how do you assign blame? So I guess we have to just say, let's put CrowdStrike to the side for a moment, because I think we're going to get to them in detail. I guess the question first is Microsoft. Ultimately, it is Microsoft's operating system. They do allow CrowdStrike into the kernel.
Yep.
Lots of talk about why that is, right? So there's some talk that like Microsoft wants people to not be in the kernel, but because of some antitrust issues, they basically have to let security vendors into the kernel. Yes. Now, of course, they could still inside there's probably more that they could do. So I don't know. Let's start there. What is your take on Microsoft? How much culpability do you assign to them in this situation?
I think their hands are tied. I mean, I think Microsoft has, they said we want to, back in the I don't know the exact day, but it was many years ago.
Yeah,
they
2006 or something.
It was in the
right?
Vista era, right?
Yep.
They were like, we're going to lock out security tools from the kernel, and everyone will access the API. And at that point, they also introduced their own security tool, and so their now competitors, the various AV providers, all said, "Hey, this is antitrust and they went to the European Union, who said, yes, you have to. This is bad for competition. You have to give all of these vendors access to the kernel as they had before. You can't take it away, and so you have to perpetually give them kernel access. This is not an issue on Mac OS or Linux. AV tools there do not have kernel access. Linux even has eBPF, which is not going to lock you out if your observability tools are going haywire. But so Microsoft's hands are kind of tied. Obviously, after this, they're going to they'll probably try to use this as evidence that this decision should be revisited. But I've also seen some posts along the lines that the EU doesn't ever check its work after the fact. Like they like make some decree and you live with it forever, right? And so we'll see if that's true or not. But generally, giving anything kernel access is not a great idea. For these reasons.
Here now, a couple things did come out after the fact, right? It did come to there was a report that CrowdStrike did break Debian and Rocky Linux several months ago, but I guess no one. When we say no one
knew.
We just mean kind of like, I'm just going to say the broad media, like it went down, but like it wasn't a news story that any of us followed.
Yeah, to me, that is even more damning for CrowdStrike that they've done this before. The fact that it didn't have the same blast radius as this attack means their release methodology is poor. Like they've broken customers' machines in the field before, and here they've done it again at large. 100x, 1000x, whatever it happened with the Linux stuff. So whatever their release procedures are, they do not deal with. They don't have a good enough test infrastructure for rolling these things out.
Okay. I think that's fair. And also just for this, just to be fair too, because I also saw this come through. It's like, it is technically possible to install things, kernel extensions in Mac. It's just hard. You have to go through
you have to check a box and say,
I just want to be fair. Yeah. It's like
yes.
Microsoft
audio hijack.
It's the easiest. Microsoft's probably the easiest to get to, but it is these other ones are possible, just to comment.
Yeah.
So,
all
right. So I don't know. I'm more sympathetic to Microsoft. I feel like there's.
I'm very sympathetic. I don't think they could have stopped this. This is not Microsoft's fault.
All right. Now, what about the old? Okay. Now let's talk about the end users, the companies, and maybe the airlines are the best ones to talk about here, because outage to the airlines is just so everyone feels it. The news media is on it.
Right.
And you were talking about you had some people impacted. So like the old
and point of sale and financial system.
Right. I mean, well, and also too, there's even doctors, hospitals. So we have all these things. So, kind of back to your life in config management, you spend a lot of time there. There is, a widely understood practice. Like a lot of people will be N-1, right? It's like, we don't, even Matt Ray, you're kind of an N-1 person, right? You've talked about on this podcast that you don't like to jump on the latest Mac OS. Like you're going to wait.
I'm a 0.1 release. Ride or die.
Release, right? Sometimes you'll even be like, a whole year will go by and you'll be like, I just updated to and so, so if you're doing this in your home for yourself, do you think these large, massive enterprises that have sort of mission critical applications, do we hold them responsible for not adhering to some kind of N-1 release strategy? Is that what they should have been doing? Can we kind of, if you're CrowdStrike or is otherwise hey, Delta, you can't just roll this stuff right to production. You got to you need to test it too.
Well, that's kind of, this is a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. These are security tools. They are supposed to be detecting 0 days and vulnerabilities and keeping you safe from things that go wild on the internet. So it does not behoove you to wait.
Right.
And sometimes legally, these companies, to check off whatever compliance, checklist they have to say, running security, vulnerability scanning at the latest, which is also one of those things does compliance, even keep up with the state of reality, because I've seen people running, antivirus on Linux and Mac machines because they have to.
Mhm.
legally they have to, but they're pretty much useless. Um, and so some of these end customers have to run security stuff, from the fire hose, get the day of releases, for compliance reasons,
All right.
which
Well, what about
really
this
slow
then?
down.
Should we even hold them accountable to be like, okay, you have to do a compliance, but like they should, if you will, roll it to
Sandbox.
like sandbox it a little bit. Maybe it's just for like a day or two, or even like
Yeah.
smoke test it, right? Like, hey, let's put this on a
Yeah.
couple
Yeah.
days, smoke test, and then if it's good, we'll push it through. But we're gonna at least have like a 24, 48 hour kind of
Burn
window
in. Yeah.
before we do it.
Well, I bet a lot of them are gonna do that now.
Yep. I bet you everyone's gonna do it now.
Yeah, I think that probably for anybody who has that option, yes, you should have been doing that. I
Mm,
mean, there's a whole, there. That's what Bastion hosts are for. You start segmenting this inbound stuff and having a burn-in test of all updates, especially if you're mission critical, like airline ticket assignment, or point of sale systems, or you know uh sheriff and police departments. I mean, there's an anecdote of more than one police department that essentially said, had a sign up at the front desk that said, unless you have a perp or are here for a restraining order, we can't help you today.
right.
And then of course they were like, just falling back on paper. But um yeah, you should be doing this pretty much always. I mean, when I see stuff like this, I'm like, best practice for infrastructure, especially, like, there's a patch Tuesday or whatever for Windows. Most people probably shouldn't be deploying on Tuesday. They should maybe wait till Thursday to, deploy it into a test environment on Tuesday. Wednesday, watch the news to see if anybody else fails, and then Thursday actually roll it out, or so, something along those lines, where that's probably safest best practice for a lot of folks. I would be really curious to see if there are anyone who like raises their hand and says, "Yeah, we're a CrowdStrike customer, but this didn't bite us because we did that." Yeah, I haven't heard that, right? And
Well,
I
I think
think
those people are just sending emails internally. They're like, "Listen, we weren't affected. We made it. Please promote me next
well,
time."
yes, and that's the rare time when the CISO gets the employee of the quarter instead of scapegoated on his way out the door, right? So yeah, I think having that sort of best practice for infrastructure config management, you should be doing that anyway. And security
Right.
was always kind of given this, hall pass of like, you can go and do whatever you want. And I think after this, hopefully people are gonna like at least review their security postures to see if this is something they have to do, or something they can opt out of and go to an N-1
Again.
or a slower release cadence, just so this doesn't happen to them again.
All right. Well, now let's go back to Microsoft then, because I think you bring up some good points. It seems like, yeah, I should do it. So, like, do you think Microsoft needs to step in here a little bit and says, because they did sign, I mean, it gets kind of like, in the weeds a little bit, but like Microsoft did sign the executable, if you will, right? Or kind of the binaries. But like this was, in effect, it's like a template file, they call it. And even though it's not, doesn't have anything to do with the drivers, because that was sort of widely reported, but then kind of debunked. So it's like, it is one of these weird things where it's like, you think you're just updating a config file, and like I mean, intuitively you're like, this shouldn't like break everything. It may
Right.
like cause a problem, but it won't break everything. Like, you wonder if Microsoft needs to say, listen,
They
you
could
you,
definitely.
you need to, like, Microsoft almost needs to say, listen, we've got a couple machines running this all the time too. Send it through, like, you test it, you send it through us, and then not until we sign off on it too, because it's just
I
because
think that
because
would
it's gonna
be.
affect so many of their customers. It's like we gotta like step in here.
I think Microsoft can probably put the onus back on its users of these interfaces. Like, hey, if you want to access the kernel, we have a kernel access program, right? They can't just, I mean, just like an application store or anything, where it's like, if you want this, if you want this level of trust and you want us to sign off on it, you have to be a gold member of this stupid thing
Right.
and pony up like
Oh,
20
you need to
grand a
be
year.
triple platinum, and you gotta be
Exactly,
like,
right?
you gotta
And they
call
have
us
to
every
fund
day.
They
Uh-huh.
have to fund a compatibility lab, um, because I mean that's essentially this is like super fund funding. You know, for the EPA, it's like if you're doing toxic work, you're going to put money into this for when you go bonkers, we're going to have to clean up your mess. And I think you know this security super fund for Microsoft is the way to do it. Is you just say like, look, you have to fund our testing of your bugs, because if we can't trust you to do it, it makes us look bad. And we can't. And I'm sure, see, that's the problem though, is the EU would probably put the kibosh in this and says, oh, you're putting up financial restrictions on your competition. So maybe Microsoft has to eat that whole sandwich. But
Yeah.
I think if Microsoft has to allow these people access, they should at least get to put some onus of testing back on those people.
Yeah, so
um,
Graham's giving us some real-time feedback here. He says that to basically do this already, they call it WHQL, sign the driver, which I think is some
yeah,
fancy.
yeah, yeah.
But I do think to Graham's point here, it's like I agree. I think no one disputes the driver was signed here. I guess this just comes down to like driver. It's like, well, you did sign the driver, but like the config file, if you will, or the template file you sent over crashed the driver, right? So I guess that's just like the weird reality here. It's just like, well, you should like don't I don't want to like I don't make it too flip, but it's just like don't do that, right? It's obviously what you're supposed to be done. So I don't know. I guess it would have to be like the next level would be like not only do we sign the driver, but anytime you change any configuration to the driver, you got to come talk to us doing that as well. So I don't know. That's kind of an interesting. I know it's just an interesting question there. So all right. So I think we kind of agree the end users could do a little bit more work. Microsoft could do a little bit more work, but now CrowdStrike. I don't know. I don't know where to begin. It's like, so I've been waiting. I try not to jump. You don't want to jump to too many conclusions because like you want to see the formal root cause analysis. As of this recording, they've done like a first pass of the root cause analysis, but they've promised a much more in-depth look at it. So what it comes down to, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? It was sort of like the file had nothing but zeros in it. I don't know why. I guess upon reading all these zeros, that caused the memory exception. It went down. And they basically just say it was not caught in testing. And then, I guess we should give some grace here. It's like they promise more details. We'll have to wait and see those. But I mean, it's like pretty simple. It's like you didn't write enough test cases, obviously.
Yeah.
That's what it comes
Yeah.
down to. So yeah, I don't know how to, it's like obviously they deserve the bulk of the blame here. Those among us who've ever written any, you've either written something has a memory error or you've never written C code. Like there's just like no in between. Like it's just like everybody has done it. Like if you've never gotten a null pointer exception, you've just never written anything in a language that allows you to do it. So I'm always like, I don't know. Part of me is like, I'm sympathetic, right? To like, weird stuff happens. But at the same time, because to your earlier point, you brought it up, like this has happened before. And then if you go back in time, and I don't know how much we should hold previous experiences, but the CEO of CrowdStrike was the CTO of McAfee during the pretty big McAfee outage that happened like many years ago. So I don't like, what do you think? Like, I mean, you're at CrowdStrike, like, and maybe they're having a blameless postmortem.
Hopefully.
Like, what do you do here? Right. Like who are we like, how, who are we holding?
Who gets the blame?
Like, I mean, it feels like it doesn't feel like you can walk out and be like, we should have tested more. Oh, sorry, we took down 8.5 million. It's like, it feels like there needs to be a bigger penalty than that. What do you think?
I'm sure they're going to scapegoat somebody, which to me, this is, yeah, I mean, everybody who follows, the blameless postmortem space knows that like, that's just, CYA that, this is a process problem. Now, obviously this got through, what they could have done. Hopefully they'll be transparent and say, this is how it got through. This is the processes that we thought would catch it. If they can't answer those questions, then obviously it's a bigger problem. And yeah, maybe heads do roll if they don't even have a process that should have caught it. But I think the CEO has just the coincidental bad luck. I mean, I don't know what he did for McAfee as a CTO. I don't know if he was, if that was placed on his head at the time or not. My guess is it's probably not the CTO's direct fault that kind of thing happened. Again, I don't think it's the CEO's problem. I think messaging sucked. I'm
All right, but
sure they
let's,
brought it.
we know who's in the, I think we can deduce what the chain of command looks like. You have the CEO,
Yeah,
you have the CTO, probably have like a VP of engineering, right? You've got probably several system architects. You probably have some people in
directors. Yeah,
QA, some directors of QA or testing are probably in there. And then you have the developers who actually implemented this change. And then you have like the actual people that run the test, right? Like, some
right.
QA testers. Like, broadly speaking, that's the group of people that are in the circle of like in the bullseye, if you will,
Yeah.
right? So like, okay, like, does nobody get, I mean, I don't know how to say it. Like, does no one in that group get fired over this? Or is it like, it's almost, I don't want to say it's like an accountability sink, but it's sort of like, because we know, I mean, it's like somewhere in this group, like, lies the responsibility. It's not like we don't know where the responsibility is, but like, how are we going to mitigate this going forward?
Right. I think, working in the security space, probably the veterans of it will do a lot of documenting CYA, right? Of, hey, here's where I said we should do this. Or
Right. Who's got the emails? Who has
who's
the
got the
email?
email
Where like,
threads
I
to
told
protect
you,
themselves? Yes.
right? Like the SolarWinds email. I told you we should have been
Yeah,
doing this
right.
before. Uh-huh.
And you responded with "yet," but no, but I mean, because for optics, for the layperson, they'll probably have to be like, oh, we fired some people, and I think that's probably not the right thing to do, because you're going to be getting rid of the people who understand what happened,
Right. And
and
there's also an
that's the
argument to be
worst thing you
made.
can do at this
And
point.
people like, I don't know if this applies here, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It's like oftentimes in these situations, when it's happened, the people where it's less likely to ever happen again are the people that are living through this right now. It's almost
Right?
like
Oh
we
yeah, yeah,
lived
yeah.
through this catastrophe, like it's like burned in their minds. They'll never forget it. So they are, in theory, going to be the ones that are most likely to not make the mistake again. Now, having said that, though, there is a larger, like, because we won't go into it today, but there are always the meetings about culture, about the culture of a company and how important the culture of a company is. So you could make the argument that, like, hey, the culture of a company that allows this to happen, the only way to change the culture is to take some drastic action, right? You need to make a statement to the company that this can never happen again. And you can't just say that. You have to do something, right? You have to do something that like people really kind of feel. And that could go all the way up to the executives to be like, it's not like the executive it's themselves did it, but ultimately
Yeah.
it is the culture of the company and their responsibility, and for the
Yes.
company to move forward and for the company to make a statement that we can never allow this to happen again. That person must step aside, right? I mean, I mean, there's an
I,
argument to be
I
made
I
that
would
it needs
agree with
one.
that, right? Which means it should not be, like sub director by any
Right.
means, right?
Or
This
the
is
classic, the funny, the line that will live on for me, at least in infamy, is the SolarWinds testimony, the intern. Well, the intern, right?
yeah,
Left it out. It's like, no, it's not like, that's always the thing when people like start to attach it to other people. It's like, no, that's your company, your culture. That's the thing you
allow,
created.
yeah,
It's not
absolutely,
an intern did that. It's like you created a process where an intern could do that, right? And I
exactly.
think this is a different situation. And we haven't heard, I think we want to be fair, right? Like we'll see what everything gets set, what happens. But I do think if you're the board of directors, I do think you have to have that conversation, right?
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
And
I
I do
think,
think in this case, the CEO is the founder. I think he's been there 12 years. So, maybe he has enough pool and stock, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not the right pick. Maybe that will be the next person down is like, we need to make a change at the CTO or the VP of engineering leadership. But I don't think, like, I think to your point though, if it goes below, I think you're generous with the director. It's sort of like, it can be the directors, but it has to be some people above it as well, right? Maybe you
yeah,
have to
yeah,
say, I have to do a couple levels down, but I got to go. I need a C-suite person. I think is going to have to either go down for this, or like, as a culture change kind of question, or you're going to have to come to me with some kind of like, it was an extraordinary situation, 1 in a billion, like no one in the world, like, 10 different things happened,
right.
and, and it's like, cause there is like, we do kind of have to allow for that. Like,
But in that case, nobody's fault, right? If it's this alignment of the stars to take you down, then it's not anybody's fault. Then there's definitely should not be. It's like, well, if it hadn't been these 7 random things that happened in concurrence, this wouldn't have happened. Well, right. So that's not a person's fault. That's a systematic fault that maybe you
Right.
couldn't
So
guess
still
7
kind of rolls
things.
back up, right? To
Right.
the,
Yeah.
I agree with you there.
I
So,
mean, systemic issues are not managed at the developer level.
I like it.
And to your point, probably not the director level either. It's the directors are the ones who are giving this feedback upstream, like, hey, we really should be doing XYZ. And if their bosses or whoever are not hearing that message and funding it, because that's what this is. It's, are you funding enough QA? Are you
Yeah.
funding
Did you do
enough?
enough? Right.
Yeah.
And so,
Um, if that doesn't happen, then the priorities were misplaced, and this happened and could happen again.
okay. Now let's step back on this, because what is this official? I always just want to call this endpoint management, but what is? I think there's like endpoint. Anyway, well,
Yeah,
it's endpoint management. I think it has a more fancy name, but in the software defined talk Slack, I'm not going to say who wrote it, but I think it was a really good point, and I wanted to get your take on it. So here's what was written. It says, "Quote: We had thousands of Falcon sensors deployed for months and haven't received a single useful finding from them. More conversations need to be had around how irrelevant compliance requirements increase the shit that
yeah,
can go wrong surface area of modern infrastructure, especially software that's required to be deployed and run on all instances just to check a box that does virtually nothing in modern security context." So
yep,
I guess this is just kind of a broad question around endpoint management. Like, I'm just assuming for a moment, like, you don't run any special endpoint management on your machines. Is that a fair assumption, Matt? Did
yeah.
I?
That's
Okay.
true. I have a lot of layers of firewalls and network policy to keep my stuff away from things inside the network. I don't have this zero trust architecture, I guess. We've got SSH credentials on machines, so you can easily connect one server to the next. But yeah, I guess I'm vulnerable.
Right.
But
Well, I guess that's the whole thing is, well, when we talk about, like, you were just on vacation with your family, I'll say, like, let's call it like the non-IT people. It's like usually like you're talking about stuff like at least I'll just speak for myself. It's sort of like, hey, why don't you use a password manager? Like,
yep.
do some basic stuff. Like, did you update your operating system? I'm not talking about endpoints. I'm just like the basic operating system
Right. Just
updates.
hygiene.
Um,
Yeah.
like, are you not downloading random things on the internet? Just sort of some basic hygiene. I don't typically say like, hey, we need to get you some endpoint management. I don't, because I feel like that's
No.
like too far. So, and I do think this point about compliance, like, this is the part that really like stuck with me. It's like, how much of this, I don't know. I just have like a real kind of like mixed feeling about all endpoint stuff. Like, because I find like I don't want any of this stuff on my computers, right? In fact,
No.
we were just talking offline about, like, sometimes you get a new computer from a workplace and they have so much stuff on it, right? It's like, so either locked down or it starts running, the performance is
Right.
bad, you can't control it. It just gets in the way, right? Same thing for schools. I watch, like, again, I feel bad for schools, but you see the students go to school and they have these computers that they almost make them unusable at times. Like,
Yeah.
they're trying to
Absolutely.
just use Figma to build a diagram, and it's like, 1,000 different security alerts go off or something simple. So I don't know. Should we just rethink? Are we like, has compliance gotten kind of out of control here? Like, in this whole endpoint management, has it gone too far? Is the need for it almost the problem, if you will?
Whew. Because as soon as you said no,
Right,
or as
it's
soon as you
popular.
said
People are
yes,
gonna be like, "But look what happened. Somebody
exactly.
downloaded a virus, and everything went wrong." And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't disagree with that, but at the same time too, it's like, this is potentially, people are quantifying this in like $5 to $6 billion of
Right.
of potential loss. So it's like, I don't know how to quantify this, but the thing I always wonder is like, let's take, what are all the problems that have been, that Falcon, their product, detected and prevented? Okay, what was the potential cost of that? So like, whatever that number is, versus the actual realized cost of this outage. Like,
What is
have they
the
stopped?
friction? Yeah.
Yeah, have they stopped all of these things to the point? Because I guess that's kind of what we've kind of decided amongst ourselves, right? It's like, I'm not going to run CrowdStrike on my local Mac. It's just, I don't think it's worth the cost, the value it provides is so low that I'll just roll with like whatever Apple does is kind of what I'm doing, right?
That default lifestyle strikes again.
I mean, it kind of does. Yeah. So it's endpoint protection. That's I guess the official name we should be using. But I don't know. It's like endpoint protection. Like how much of it is theater and how much of it is like, oh, this is really actually helping us.
Yeah, I mean that's the $1 million question because I mean I'm thinking of like my children's schools. They had they said you can use this kind of computer. My daughter's school is like you can use a Mac, and they had to install like a trusted bundle from their IT department, and it's annoying. I mean it blocks out websites. She can't use Messenger she can't use Messenger or Slack from schools networks, but she can at home. And so like all the kids just VPN. I mean, there's just all these like weird ways that the kids understand the ways around them. So I assume most employees would too. The kids might be sharper, but I mean, my son had a Chromebook and they all figured out how to root them and install games on them. So I think, but if you put on your hat as like, oh, I'm the IT guy having to support this stuff, it's a nightmare because they're dealing with like, oh, my Mac is broken. And then when you get in, it's like, well, why is it broken? Is it,
what did you do?
Something? Is it malware? Is it, yeah.
Right?
And so, that they are, they don't really have a choice because they kind of have to do something. And the something that they do may be an overcorrection, but the undercorrection is potentially way worse. And so I feel like, I hate to say it, but I feel like you have to have something for corporate environments because the threat surface is so high. There's so many people and software, and the internet is a dangerous place.
Right.
The internet is like, a very dangerous place.
Just say like Sony is a good example where like they didn't have endpoint detection running, and then of course they got hacked by North Korea and there was like, stuff. So I did poll a friend of mine that does kind of runs an organization of CISOs, and I asked him, I was like, what are people talking about? And he just said as a broad statement, endpoint security is like what they think is like one of the most important things that they do.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
I don't think it's going anywhere.
Can't like say no. Yeah.
Well, I think what you said there is exactly right. Like they literally just can't say no. It's one of these things like, I don't know what the value is, but like if you don't have it, the penalties, you're just going to immediately get fired, right? If someone's like,
yeah,
you let this virus get in here and you didn't have endpoint management running, you're fired.
Right.
So there's there's nothing they can do to not have it. But I do think it's interesting when you talk on the consumer side, that we generally don't have it. And then this is sort of a wraparound argument for like the world's largest companies, Microsoft and Apple, is like, because like if you had to do this, I think at this point, like why not just go with Microsoft, right? Because you can be like, we have the Microsoft endpoint detection. Like Microsoft is incented as anyone would be in the world to not let this thing go wrong, right? So you would think that like, okay, leave it to the operating system vendor. Of course, then the EU will step in and other people will be mad about competition. And then meanwhile, you have to think Apple really enjoyed this week. The whole thing with the Apple and the EU, they're just like, oh, you don't want an app store? Oh, you want a free-for-all on the iPhones and everyone should be able to download what you want? Look what can happen. Look over there. Look who's not having a problem today. They're like, we got 1 billion iPhones in the market. You know what they're doing? Everyone's watching TikTok, checking their email. No one's having problems. It's fine. In fact, they're reading about the Microsoft outage on their iPhone. So you got to think, Apple was just like, see, this is why we do it. The way we do it.
The number one rule of corporate comms is never kick your competitors. Because everyone knows.
Say it, but they were just over there. They were thinking it.
You can think it. And someday, someone will have a subpoena on those internal Slack messages, and you'll see the threads, and people are like, oh, looky over here, and haha. And all the Nelson GIFs, but still, you never, ever publicly rag on your competition because it's going to happen to you.
It's true. All right. Well, a couple final things that we'll wrap up and we'll move on to another topic. One, Do we give Southwest Airlines an award, or do we make fun of them because their systems are so old? They're running a version of Windows that was
I
so old that
think
it
that's
was
an urban
unaffected.
myth. I
Is that not
think
true? Is that a
I
lie?
think it's not true. I
They
think
just didn't have and they just didn't have CrowdStrike.
apparently I think my understanding of this is when the McAfee virus in 2010 happened, somebody posted like on Reddit or something like,
Oh,
well,
okay.
Southwest didn't go down because they were running Windows 3.1. It was a joke. And
Okay.
somebody in the media picked it up,
Oh,
reprinted it,
darn it.
and apparently like I think they were actually running like 95. So
Okay.
it was still out of date, but they over exaggerated. So that got picked up,
Okay.
published in a semi-reputable source like CNET or something. And so now people are like, oh, well, CNET said this and it must have been true then. So I think the Southwest thing isn't actually true.
It's a lie. All right. Well, good. Thanks for fact checking that, because it honestly read so well. So, okay, the other one, the final.
It's a beautiful story though, right?
It is. Well, it's almost too good. You're just like, because they had that huge outage like last year or year before. So, all right. Well, this one, maybe you can fact check this one too. It's like, because if this is true, this may be the thing that gets someone fired. It was been reported, and I did double check. I have a TechCrunch link, and I think they're usually a
Yep.
reputable source. So I apologize if this is not right, but it has been reported that CrowdStrike offered a $10 apology gift card. I think it was from like, DoorDash or like some kind of food thing, for the outage. So again, quadruple caveat, assuming this is actually true, is this the moment the CEO gets fired? You're just like, you just can't, like, the optics of this is so bad, right?
Uh,
Doesn't matter what the intent was, doesn't matter just anything other than like, if they actually let this go out, I feel like this be the moment where you're like, we got to change the leadership.
okay. Okay.
Because this decision is
Paragraph
100%.
7, Brandon.
Uh-huh.
CrowdStrike spokesperson Kevin Bonacci confirmed to TechCrunch that the company sent the gift cards.
Oh my gosh. Oh my. Okay. So, I mean, I think that's it. I think you're out. I think that, to me, that is the fireable offense here, right? The optics of this is so bad that, like, it's just like, I mean, I can't even describe it. I mean, we're talking like $6-8 billion. And of course, like, if you watch the FlightAware track where like all the Delta and United flights, like it's like a sea of planes, and then it goes to basically nothing. And all you can see is like the thousands of people waiting in airports,
I want that
just
animated
pissed,
GIF.
right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I think that may be the only fireable offense here, where it's like, we got to let you go. Like, the fact that you were like, this is going to help us, is like, you're out. So I don't know. What do you think? Can you defend that thing?
I think the only way it wouldn't be fireable if it was like $10 gift card per device. Because a friend of mine has 2,200 devices that he had to deal with since
Oh my
Friday.
gosh. So he's
Right?
he's just walking around rebooting
Oh, yeah.
stuff,
He was like
right?
5 to 10 minutes per device. That's essentially how, and you can do them in parallel, but 5 to 10 minutes per device.
Jeez. Well, I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait on this thing. I just think, to me, it was pretty simple. Like, if I was in this case, I would have just called everybody that was field facing and been like, hey, call your customers first, see if they need any help. Second, apologize. Third, go do something. You know that customer well, go do something for that customer. Go in there and, if you want to buy everybody in the office lunch, or take them out to
Right,
play golf,
right.
or like
I mean,
whatever that customer is, whatever like relationship you have, go do stuff with them. Take them to dinner, right? Like, for God's sake, don't send everyone an email with a gift card code. I mean, that's just like,
yeah.
that's just instantly memeable, right? Like, who isn't going to meme that? I mean, there's nothing else you can do.
Yes. It's bad. It's bad.
Well, I don't know. Best of luck to everyone in CrowdStrike, and more importantly, best of luck to all the IT administrators that are rebooting. What did you say? 10 minutes at a time. So 10 minutes
Yeah.
at a time. I don't know what's going on.
I think CrowdStrike has or is going to be releasing an automated fix if you trust it.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Hopefully everyone will get. I did see where Delta Airlines was having a especially difficult time. So if you flew Delta this week, I'm sorry to hear about that. So, all right. Well, let's move on to some more positive news, and something that it's been around for a while, but since you're away, we didn't cover it. But I wanted you to maybe kind of think about some of the billing stuff. So there was announcing data exports for Focus 1.0. So this is, I guess, preview in AWS billing and cost management. So you're a FinOps person here. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? Why should we care? Is it good? Is it bad?
So the FinOps Foundation started an effort called the FinOps cost and usage specification, where they were trying to standardize how cloud providers present their billing to end users. And when you say standardize, you're talking about like, well, this customer calls it blob storage, this one calls it S3. Can we just call it object storage?
Mhm.
And so they had a working group. I participated for a while, where all these different products tried to get mapped to the same primitives, and some of it was reductive. Some of it is lowest common denominator, but they tried to be thorough. So at the end of the day, you'd be able to compare apples to apples when, say, you're comparing, Azure to GCP or AWS or OCI. So you could say like, my object storage here is this much, my object storage there is this much, and it's essentially the same sort of service. And the reason this is useful is if you are multi-cloud and you need to compare costs between clouds, you want to actually be able to say like, what I'm doing on one platform is the same on another. Where does it cost more? And all the tooling can take advantage of it too.
Okay, so a couple things here. So one, I know the announcement that I read was that it's a preview in AWS billing and cost management.
Yeah.
So do we know, do Azure and GCP already support this?
I think everyone is slapping beta and preview tags on it, but yes, and I think Oracle as well. So I think all four of them were involved in the initial release, and so I believe with each of them you have the option of saying, well, this AWS Cur is great, but I want the focus version of it too, or instead, and in the coming year, I guess, more tools will start to support focus directly. And then if you are a second tier cloud vendor, if you're an Alibaba or a Linode or whoever, you can be like, look, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get every cloud vendor or every cost management vendor to support my platform, but if I did focus, they'd get me for free.
Right. And that's the real big win here. So obviously, you're going to have all these cost management solutions. Obviously, you're familiar with many of those. And then, so I think it's almost like a monitoring kind of situation. You'll have the built-in tools, like I said, AWS, Azure, they'll have their tools. You'll be able to, use the focus data, use your third-party tools. And then, of course, I guess you'll be able to write your own Python scripts and port this into Excel and do your own analysis as well, right?
And so this is almost like open telemetry for billing, where, if we all have a standard, everyone can consume it. And it took a while, but it's a great effort for the FinOps community.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I feel
and it's not the first time it's been tried.
Well, I was gonna say, I was kind of surprised. Like, I don't know. I guess I don't know if you want to speak to it, but like, it's surprising AWS supports it just because they're like, why do we care?
They were the last to join.
so somehow inside there, they must have figured out it was easier for them too. I don't know why.
I think they heard from their customers, right? Customers want this, because customers, like it or not, multi-cloud is a thing for some customers, and the sorts of customers who have it are usually big customers.
Okay. All right. Well, good. All right. So everybody knows what focus is. And and again, focus stands for, wow, this is a mouthful. FinOps, open cost and usage specification. So,
FinOps,
all right, so now when you're,
I appreciate you injected open cost in there, but it's just the FinOps cost and usage.
Oh, I don't know. That's what it said in my, it's what it said. I actually took that quote directly from.
Oh, you're right. It does say open.
I mean, I don't know.
I've seen it both ways, which makes me think that like maybe somebody somewhere.
Well, let's hope the schema is better than the messaging. Let's hopefully they didn't spend so much time.
On focus.finops.org, FinOps cost and usage specification.
All right. Well, all right.
So there you go. AWS.
That's not my fault. AWS
rolling.
That's not my fault. I just read what they
no, you're right.
wrote. So, all right. Well, good. Well, everyone can now, you can go figure out what you're spending on cloud, and hopefully that's good news to you. Now, there is some breaking news, but we're going to break news on this podcast today. There's a lot of talk about Wiz. Wiz was offered $23 billion. Google was going to buy them. They said they're not going to do that. They're going to pursue the IPO. That's all public knowledge. But we have a industry first. We have a breaking announcement about Wiz that you will not get this information on any other podcasts. Matt, tell us what the breaking news with Wiz is that everyone needs to know.
Well, the other bit of breaking news, I guess, is I'm actually going to be starting with Wiz next month. So um, I will be joining in August, and looking forward to it.
All right, so we can confirm, Matt, you were not part of the acquisition team. You did not. I think we can say that, right?
That was one of the things that pierced the news shroud on vacation. Was
it did? You were.
This whole story.
I was like, oh, you need to look at this, Matt, and you were like,
yeah, no, it pierced it. Multiple people, a few people already I talked about it with, and but it's not happening. But the company will fight on.
All right, well, there you go. Good for Matt. Matt joins the Wiz, and I don't know. In a couple of weeks, maybe you can come on. You can explain more about
sure
what. And of course, it's Wiz, not the Wiz. I'm going to make this statement. I'm going to, and of course, I think the Wiz, the movie's coming out later this year, so it's going to be a confusing time. It's going to be some. I hope the Wiz people have good SEO, because it's going to be a little bit confusing for the next few months.
They seem to be doing all right.
things seem to be going okay at Wiz, I can tell. So, all right, well, congratulations. We look forward to hearing more about Wiz, and you can come on and educate us about it soon enough. Now, our good friends at Google. So I think it's always the good and the bad with Google. So I guess we'll start with the bad. The goodbye, the Google URL shortener. I guess it's been deprecated for a long time, but now if you used the Google shortener and you have some of those little links out there, I guess they're all going to go away. So
oof.
That seems like a tough. That's like, I don't know, Google. It seems
why shut it down? I mean,
that's kind of what I think. It's like, isn't this just a bunch of redirects on like one tiny little server inside Google? Like, do you really have to break everybody's URLs?
I know. I mean, think about the Internet Archive of how many links are, I mean, this would be like if Bitly disappeared. Right.
I agree. It just seems like it's crazy that they're doing it. I don't know what somebody wrote. This was not since they killed off Google Reader had they been this upset. So I feel
this will probably be noticed by more people than Reader. I mean,
for sure, because you're going to get the interstitial for a little bit, and then you're just going to get a broken link, and you're going to be like, thank you, Google. So I don't know. It does seem unfair to the internet that they would break all these links. But what are you going to do now? In the good category, they have officially added the ability to import and export Markdown from Google Docs. I guess the question we have to ask ourselves, do we trust this? Like, how long will this feature? Because Markdown, widely used, of course, used all over GitHub. Part of the way that we build the show notes is through Markdown. Everyone, I don't know. I think we're all fans of Markdown. There's like, just not many detractors out there anymore. So I don't know. Even here at Software Defined Talk, I'm hesitant to take advantage of the Markdown support. I'm sort of like, we got a process that works. I don't know if we're switching. What do you think?
Yeah, I think probably for the immediate future, we will continue our Markdown and Dropbox approach. Mm-hmm. This doesn't have the same peril of their URL redirect, because nobody is going to like build infrastructure. You say nobody. It's unlikely that this will become critical path to large, numbers of users, but I appreciate it as a feature at least.
It's nice. It seems to work fine. I played around with it today, but again, it's sort of like, I guess we're, here at Software Defined Talk, we're an N-1 organization. You know what? We're going to watch. We're going to let this bake for a little bit. We're not going to desert a Dropbox paper. We may be the last people using Dropbox paper, but we're still out there. We love the Markdown support. And really, I have to say, Dropbox, even to this day, they have better support. Very easy to edit links and cut and paste. It's just like kind of like they have some Markdown magic inside that. So we'll see.
While I appreciate this feature and the spell check that was introduced to Notepad, again, I don't think the market cared. Right. I don't think, the stock market was like, oh, Alphabet, look at them go. But it is a nicety, and I appreciate it.
Hey, but like I said, I think I said on a previous episode, hey, listen, professional software development, product management, at some point you just got to do what needs to be done. Like Markdown and Google Docs. At least it didn't take 40 years. So,
hey, what about Word? We're looking at you now.
Yeah, that's right. Word, you're on the clock, baby. Microsoft Word, you're on the clock.
And they're like, we already export HTML.
We definitely do. You know what? Talk about a feature that can be deprecated. That one, especially when they throw all that like boilerplate in there. It's like, this is unusable. I can't even
Yes.
use it. So, all right. One other quick thing. I thought we just do kind of a vibe check on the forks. So there's a pretty good article actually posted by both Steve O'Grady, and then the one I really liked was I think it's the CEO
So
of what
LinkedIn, yeah.
Change Guard. Was it Dan?
Guard, yeah.
Yeah,
Dan Lork.
yeah.
Yeah.
He has some nice things because he has graphs, which of course I like. And so his quick take was that Open Tofu and and then Valkey, right? I guess Valkey being the Redis. I think I said it right there. The Redis replacement, and then Open Tofu. Help me. What is it? It's the replacement for our friends over at what are they replacing, Matt?
Terraform.
Thank you, Terraform. I lost it there for a second. So if you look at it, so he's done, and he's pretty open about it. He's sort of just kind of like back of the napkin kind of math about commits and kind of, let's call it like activity of the projects. And he kind of shows both these projects, a lot of activity on GitHub, a lot of commits, seem like the communities are growing. So, we're going to check in. We're going to watch this closely. This is, I think, on the Software Defined Talk watch lists for, years to come. It seems like off to a good start. Optimistically, these projects seem like they're gaining traction. But again, I think we need to check in like a year to see, like, because I think there was a lot of momentum. So what do you think? Any thoughts on this? Do you think things are going well?
I think things are going well. I mean, both of them reported. The article pointed out like Valky especially has moved faster than Redis on new features. All the things that were previously blocked because they interfered with Redis, the company's commercial wants, are now going into the product, and the number of commits and the number of active committers are increasing for both projects. I think Terraform will probably be a lot more conservative. Terraform, Open Tofu will be more conservative because Terraform is pretty baked. I don't think there's going to be a lot of breaking changes happening in Terraform that they'll want in Open Tofu, and vice versa, right? I think that project is probably more likely to stay. But Valky, the interviews I listened to and things I've read have said like they felt like they were being held back, and so they definitely are going to be moving fast.
All right, I like it. So, all right, we'll tune in at the end of the year. We'll do another vibe check then. See if things are still going well. It seems like it's going pretty well. And then final thing, we'll just do a quick hot takes on this. So GitLab is for sale, funded a lot by Google. So I don't, to me, it's like, this seems like we don't need to break out the investment banks for this one. Seems like it's pretty simple. Like, why doesn't Google just buy GitLab? That would be their, if you will, their answer to GitHub. Right. It seems obvious to me now. But the other one I thought was interesting. It said that Datadog is rumored to be sniffing around GitLab. I gotta love the pun there. So good job, headline writer. I don't know. Like I know Datadog has a big market cap, but like, it doesn't. Like, what do you think? It's just
It doesn't feel like a natural fit. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a natural fit. But I guess if Datadog has aspirations to like move beyond monitoring, that's one way.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I think Datadog needs. I'm trying to think of a fancy. What would a headline writer say? Like maybe Datadog needs to put down this bone and go play with some other toys, like that. I don't know.
Sniff around some other tree. Yeah.
Yeah. Like keep sniffing, kind of thing. So we'll watch that one. I don't know. Of course, like when you're for sale, it's always good to have if you will, stalking horses out there. So because if Google's your only bidder, they're probably not going to give you much. If Datadog, although I think they probably look at like Datadog's like sure. Why not? Datadog, you guys take it. So I don't know. It'll be a fun one to watch. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, last week, as you heard, Matt, we've introduced a new segment. It's called Ask SDT. And so you can always ask us questions by either sending an email to questions@softwaredefinedtalk.com, or you can go into the Slack and you can use what channel? It's the Ask SDT channel. And this week, our question comes from Bruce. He asks, quote, can we get an update on a recommendation from Brandon a few years back on using an Apple Watch as a communications device for your preteen instead of a phone? Got a kid turning 11 who needs communications with when he does activities in neighborhood and considering watch with cellular over iPhone. So I'll just give you, I thought, Matt, you have some good takes here. You have more children, so you've been through this more times than I have. I'll give you the quick history. Was my son, in fact, I consulted him for the question to double check I had it right. We ultimately, he actually used his own money that he'd been saving to buy himself an Apple Watch in 5th grade. And I think it went really well. So basically, from all the way through 5th grade till his 13th birthday, he had the Apple Watch. It did have cellular. I thought it was really convenient because you can basically text them and they can text you using voice or kind of this makeshift keyboard.
Yeah.
I was very worried that it would probably like have some distractions at school and stuff. There is school time you can set on it, but what I found was the novelty of it just sort of like wore off. Like they were just, there's not that much you can do on a watch. Like you can tell time. There's a few things you can do, but there's no social media. There's no video spot. So there's like a minimal amount of distractions. And as a parent, I actually really did I love the Find My feature. So you can kind of, if you will, give your kid a little bit more freedom to roam around and you can kind of still know where they are. And then of course the simple things, just like Bruce was asking here, it's like, hey, practice is over. You can come pick me up, or like, oh, it turns out I need 30 more minutes. So that's just like basic scheduling stuff. I mean, it's really convenient. So I think it's good. Like I think, and we made it. So I guess from 5th grade all the way through, I guess halfway through 7th, I think our plan was to like not have cell phones until 8th grade, but we broke down. I don't know. That was probably not a good decision, but it was just like in 7th grade, at least here in the United States, it seemed like 13 was like a lot of kids were getting it. And that becomes like a primary form of socialization. So you're kind of like, should I do this? Should I not? Like, I want my kid to be social, but I don't want them on, all the bad stuff. So I don't know. I'm not, check back in 4 or 5 years. I'll tell you if that was a good decision, but he does have the phone now. Generally things have been okay. So I wouldn't turn it off, but like every parent has their own opinion. So that was my take. Any takes on this, on watches and phones?
My kids had phones before their watches, and their schools don't allow either. So they can have phones in their lockers and access during lunch. So they don't really wear their watches during the week because they can't wear them to school.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, so like, I guess that's interesting too. Like, it really does help with the school policy, and the school has a strict policy. That's how it is at my son's school, is where like there's no phones. All phones are only in the backpack. So like that seems to work pretty well. Although there are watches around, so I don't, is it good, is it bad? So Bruce, I don't know. I think we're gonna endorse the watch. Let us know how it goes. If it goes poorly, it's not our fault. We're like, you know what, Bruce? If it goes poorly, we'll send you a $10 gift card that you can go.
And the redemption code may or may not be valid, but we'll send it.
All right. And remember, if you have a question on any topic that you want to ask, questions@softwaredefinedtalk.com, or use the Ask SDT channel in the Slack. Also, Dan wrote in last week. I said that I thought IBM did not have a foundation model like ChatGPT. I was wrong, so my apologies. There is a whole link to foundation models on IBM Watson X.ai. I'll put the link in the show notes. And then it looks like IBM had a good day for earnings. So sounds like things are going well. So good for them. I also sent some stickers to Matthew Shear in Illinois. And if you'd like a sticker, all you have to do is send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. Be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. And another thing that I really like, just a hot take from Slack, was Brett wonders if an AI subscription will become part of Amazon Prime. I was like, I think that's kind of interesting. So Amazon working on
that could save Alexa.
Yeah. So I think it's Metis.
Well, sure. I mean, like the concept. I think this is going to be like Apple and Siri. They'll just kind of insert Apple AI to where Siri was, and Amazon ostensibly could replace Alexa with Metis. And
but I do think there'll be like a thing where it's kind of like Amazon Prime, where it's like, oh yeah, if you want the good version, you got to be a Prime customer. So I'm interested to see.
Well, they'll probably just cram it full of ads.
That's good. That's it. And then finally, Roberto wrote in. He says, "Quote: Absolutely agree with empanadas, pierogies, dumplings, and tortillas, pitas, and crepes being universal food." So I think we're just going to say Cote's right. We shall make that the Cote law. There are a group of universal foods. Cote's identified them. So there you have it.
And Richard's law is you must export CSV.
Yeah, you can tell where Cote and I spend our time. That probably says a lot about it. So appreciate all the feedback. It's always fun to like hear from everyone. So write in, get stickers, ask questions, or just tell us what we got wrong. Any of that is always appreciated. Conference wise, a couple things coming up here. DevOps Days Birmingham, August 19th through the 21st. Spring 1, where Cote will be, and VMware Explore, that's August 26th to the 29th. There's a DevOps Day in Antwerp, September 4th and 5th. And then there's an SRE London 2024, that's September 19th to the 20th. Use code SRE20day to get 20% off, and you'll find Cote there. Now, having said all that, Matt, what recommendation do you have for us this week?
Simple recommendation this week: the Crying Out Loud podcast.
What a name! Oh wow! Okay, I've not seen this. I just
Crying
saw the
Out
name
Cloud.
there.
Yeah,
Okay.
Crying Out Cloud. It is brought to you by Wiz. I'm not like deep background in the security space. Yeah, I've definitely done a fair amount of compliance, but security is a little different. And so I've just been listening through all the back episodes. What I like about it is essentially they talk about the CVE or security story of the week and give you a background of like how it happened, what they know about it, how it was discovered, and what remediation steps you can take. And whether or not you're vulnerable and what remediation steps. So it's kind of like those Wired articles where they're like, hey, here's the latest vulnerability, and here's how it was found, and it kind of blasts all that out. And they're 25 minutes an episode, and they hit like 3 or 4 things, and it's diverse. And I enjoy the just the brief newsness of it, and I like it.
That's good. All right. So CVE, for all those not know, I think it's what common vulnerability and exposures. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right? So it's basically like,
I mean, they
what are the hacks? What
they
new
talk
hacks
about the
are
latest
popping up?
hacks and break down acronyms at times. And it's not intended for like the deep security people yet. So I'll probably find a podcast that's deeper, to help expand my knowledge. But it's
Who
good
knows?
for the layperson.
Maybe friend of the show. You have to get with Dustin Kirkland. He's over there at Chain Guardian. They're always like talking like way down in the CVEs and all that stuff. So all right, Crying Out Cloud. Love the title. Never heard it. I've never heard of it, so I'm going to listen to an episode. That's going to be fun for me. So, all right, I'm going to give 3 recommendations this week. I think maybe 2 of them given before, so I'm kind of cheating. One, I think I said this before, but my son and I went to our second Austin FC. That's our local soccer team, football for the rest of the world outside the United States. And we went to one of the night games. Really fun. So if you're just looking for it seems to be like the perfect time. It's basically 45 minutes, a half. So you're in and out in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I think everyone enjoys it. I realized MLS for everyone outside the United States, like that's our Major League Soccer. I realize we're not great at soccer, but it's still kind of fun, and it was a really good experience. I think in Austin, the stadium's like 20,000 people, so it's just a good amount of people where everyone's into it, and there's really not a bad seat. I think most of the MLS stadiums that are soccer specific follow a very similar pattern. So if you're looking for something to do, maybe your family's not loving sports, it's just enough time where everyone can enjoy it and move on, as compared to like American football, especially college football games, which can like last 4 hours. And if you're into the game, it's awesome. If you're with your family, many people are generally ready to leave at halftime. So there you go. So go to the soccer game with the family, go to the football games by yourself. That's what I think you should do. Also, Presumed Innocence, which was on Apple TV Plus. The finale was this week. There was a movie, and it is based on a movie.
Was there a movie? Yeah.
A long time ago in the 90s. It's all based on a book, but the series was good. It's a little different. I won't say anything else if you kind of want to watch it, but it was like, I thought it was like, this is going to go just like how the movie went, and it was a little different. So I enjoyed that. So it was good. So if you're looking for something, and I think it's 8 episodes, and it's all out now. So if you are one of those people that you have to wait until you want to stream it all and binge it, you can do that now. And then finally, I ran across this book. This book kind of polarizing. So you have to decide if you want to read it or not. So it's called The Contrarian, and it's basically a pretty in-depth profile of Peter Thiel. And he's been in the news for a lot of reasons. And so I knew a lot about the PayPal part of his career. I knew less about kind of things he's done after that. So this is a very detailed account. I think some people will say it's enlightening reading online. Some people say it's very one-sided and sort of like a hit job. So I don't know if you like to read business profiles. This is where the author doesn't necessarily have a ton of access to the subject. You should check it out. That's not your thing. If you sort of like want to, I guess if you don't like that, you want to read his book, you can read 0 to 1, which is a book I've also read. Now that one he wrote himself. So I don't know if you want to know more about Peter Thiel, maybe you can read one of those books. The Contrarian one, lots of information in it that I had not heard about. So check that out only if you're really into like a detailed business profile. Otherwise, just waste your time watching television with presumed innocence. So
there you go.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone that watched this streaming. Everyone, you can always check us out on YouTube or on Twitch. We stream whenever we record most weeks, mostly on Wednesday. And of course, you can watch the recording anytime. We always post it on YouTube after the fact. And we'll be on next week about this time. So until then, we'll see you then next time.
Bye.
All right. Cool. All right. Hey, listen, I wanted to thank Graham. Appreciate all your, I haven't seen this one, this latest blog. Appreciate your real-time feedback. Hopefully we got all of your suggestions in. What is this? So what is he showing here? Is this the latest, or is this another link? Why is it not letting me? Oh, I don't want to show it. Can you click on that link? How do I? You still there?
Yeah.
Now it's showing. Oh, that's funny.
I'm able to click on them. And,
that's all from today. All right. We will. I will have to read that one. I'll see if they posted another postmortem because that's.
I mean, the review I'd read.
I think this is still the preliminary one. I'm waiting for the detailed one. I'm waiting for that. Like that. What was the group?
You might have to wait. Yeah.
Where it was like the PDF and it was like 50 pages. I can't remember what was that. It was for like.
Who was that? Yeah.
CNCF did. That's what I was like. That's what I'm.
Oh, the CNCF did that for the Hashi.
That's what it was.
Hashi saying that they stole the code from Terraform. And,
yeah. That's what I'm hoping that we'll get from.
Which has fallen out of the news.
Yeah, it seems like that's like it's amazing. But the news cycle is so fast now. It's like I don't know. It's like every day goes by. It's because sometimes in the summer it's like, well, we won't have anything to talk about. And I'm like, man, it's like no, like stuff happens every week. Like
the summer doldrums are never doldrums.
There's never a time you can take vacation. You're just like, well, there's infinite news. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for everyone watching on the stream. We'll see you next time about this time. So take care.